What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Bad Brains. And we're going to listen to a tune that originally came from their first single, I believe, in 1980, but was then a couple years later included on their self-titled debut album, 1982, a seminal and legendary album in the world of punk rock, and I would say hardcore punk, but as I think I've discussed in earlier Bad Brains videos, which I don't think I've done one for a couple years, might even be more than that. I did a bunch when I first started, and then I think they have been off since then. But as I discussed surely in some of those earlier videos, you know, they're Rastas, they're very much into, you know, the reggae culture and belief system, and in that regard they eschew the word hardcore, I think even back then, but because they're associated with the Washington, D.C. punk rock scene in the early 80s, when other groups like Minor Threat were emerging, they were labeled hardcore. And I think it's fair to say that sonically, their sound in the early days very much is similar to other hardcore punk bands. But yes, it's always a word they've rejected, which I think is for philosophical/religious reasons, so I won't say hardcore punk, I'll just say punk rock. But yes, we're going to listen to the tune Pay to Come, which the first time you hear it, I don't think anyone could reasonably pick up all the lyrics. I've talked about before, the lead singer HR, in their early punk rock songs, sung very fast with a lot of screeches and shouts, and, you know, was not easily decipherable on all the lines. Now, to be fair, it's not even really a chorus. There's like 2 verses in this song where he sings a bit slower and his voice is echoed, and I think you can understand those lines, but the regular verses come at such warp speed that I think there's really no way on a first listen you could possibly hear it. So this was one of the songs where I had to look up and to check what he's saying, but I think he is saying in the song, and to be fair, it's been a while since I've listened to this, but he is essentially saying that these days everything is going so fast and everything costs money. You have to pay to write, you have to pay to fight, you have to pay to think, and pay to come. So I think it's an observation or a commentary on the fast-paced, consumeristic, everything has a price tag affixed to it type of attitude. And I think there's a verse where it's like, in the old days, things used to go slower, we had time to think, and I don't think he uses the word create, but my understanding of this song for a long period of time is that it's been about a contrast between a more thoughtful and deliberative time, and by the early 80s, a more quantified and, again, everything is for sale, everything costs money, even emotions and feelings and creativity. So that's always my take on it, but as with a lot of punk rock lyrics, I, of course, am open for different interpretations, and lyrics in general, I should say, not just with punk rock, but that's always the way I've taken this song. I do want to add, given that I've just started doing some reactions to Skank and Pickle, on their Ska Funk Rasta Punk album, I believe they do a cover of this. I'm quite certain of that. I've been going through the Green album, so we'll go through that, and then eventually I'll try to find my copy of Ska Punk Rasta Punk, Ska Funk Rasta Punk, which I haven't seen in a long time, so no guarantees that I'll have it, but I'll see if I can pick it out, because, as I said, I believe they do a cover of this, which is slower and perhaps less insane. And to be fair also, as I know I mentioned in earlier Bad Brains reactions, they did reggae tracks as early as this release, so they've always had a mixture of styles, and then in more recent years they went by the Soul Brains for their name, and they did almost entirely reggae tracks, so they've evolved over the course of their career, and I don't believe they play a lot of their punk rock, I was going to say hardcore punk, their punk rock tunes anymore, but again, this album is just legendary, and it features both really fast, crazy hardcore, really fast, crazy punk rock, I'm never going to be able to get that in my head, and reggae. So, in any case, let's hear it. This is Bad Brains, the track is Pay to Come, and it's from originally a 1980 single, and then heard here as part of the 1982 self-titled album, though I have the Band in DC Greatest Hits release or compilation out because it's also featured on that. Again, in early 80s punk rock, whether you use the word hardcore or not, that was the formula, if you will, and formula feels too harsh and sort of antithetical to the idea of what these bands and songs were often articulating. But yeah, you said what you were going to say quickly if necessary. You said it very passionately and intensely, and boom, the song's done. There's no wasted motion. There's no, 4-minute guitar solos. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with long instrumental solos. Although, again, that makes me think of a Dead Kennedys song. I'm blanking on, what's the name? There's a line something like, the music's great when there's more ideas than solos. I get what Jello was saying, but I also do appreciate a good solo. So I realize that, in different contexts, the importance of instrumental sections may be less or more, and perhaps in early 80s punk rock, it was less important than the words you were saying, the ideas you were transmitting. But yes, again, that's very typical of early 80s punk rock, especially, I would say maybe both with West Coast punk rock, like, early Bad Religion, Social Distortion, and so on, also DOA up in Canada, but also East Coast bands, again, like Minor Threat, like Bad Brains, like Circle Jerks. You had a minute and a half, you just ripped out your ideas, ripped out some guitar work and some crazy vocals, and that's it. So, yes, as I said, you'll have to look up the lyrics. I don't remember exactly, but essentially what I was saying in the intro is what I think is happening here. The idea that everything now is so fast-paced and everyone wants to charge you for everything, even things that should be on some level personal and emotional and cognitive, and everything costs money. A value has been affixed to all parts of modern life. And do you remember when things were a bit slower and actually you had time to think and engage in activities that weren't quantified in that way? So, in any case, from Luca, the Grooming Cat and I, let me know what you think of this one. I will see you next time. Peace.